Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Conversations with Davina. I am your host, Davina McLean Randall, and I am the founder of A Caring Voice for You, a nationwide based phone service designed to uplift individuals facing stress, loneliness, grief, life transitions, and honestly, everything in between. So, whether you are in need of someone to check in with you or just listen, we're here to provide that support that you need. Remember, you are not alone. So if you or a loved one could benefit from any emotional support, please reach out to caringvoiceforyou.com. So today I'm thrilled to welcome a truly inspiring guest. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you today.
Thank you so much, Davina. I am thrilled to be here.
Well, we appreciate you for being here and being just available to share your story to help others be lifted up. So, can you let the audience know just a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, just as you mentioned, I am an author and I have also uh, a, a junior literary agent as well as an encouragement coach and a development coach. So, I strongly believe that everyone has a story, whether it's a written story or it's a story that they hold close to their heart. And I think we all live out our stories. And so I feel like part of my gifting is to be able to help people develop in producing their story and coming a little closer to who they are, to their identity and their purpose.
Wow, that's beautiful. You help with, is it with editing, with from beginning to finish of book writing, or tell us a little bit more?
Okay, so I wear several different hats. As I mentioned, that I am an author. I just had a series of children's books that came out that I collaborated with my twin sister, and at the same time, I was previously uh, um, uh, an executive editor for a lifestyle magazine and had done a lot of freelance writing, a lot of gig work, and just worked for a lot of different publications. And in that, I just found that I love being able to pull stories from people, do interviews, and get to know people in a deeper level. So, as I mentioned, I do also work with authors that are trying to find representation. So I am a junior literary agent and I'm always looking for underrepresented voices. Again, as I mentioned, a lot of people have a story, but they've got it, but they just don't know what to do with it. And so I try to be available to be able to represent when I am able to. And at the same time, the development part of it is being able to work through editing and just helping people kind of flesh out their story a little bit more, trying to get more out of the richness of the
Mm-hmm.
the content and the quality of their stories through editing and just really kind of talking through the process. A lot of people are shy writers and they have a story, but they're not sure how to get it across. And so my goal is to be able to kind of help pull that out of them. And so there's a lot of different things that I work with them on. So it's just been a phenomenal ride for me just to be able to see people grow, authors grow into their story.
Wow, that's awesome. So thank you for kind of breaking that down because a lot of people they just don't know exactly what the literary, you said junior literary
Literary agent.
agent is. So it helps to kind of break it down just a little bit so they know exactly what you do so that if they're interested, they can definitely reach out to you. And I
What's
love the,
also
oh, go on.
I'm sorry. What's also interesting is I've spent 30 plus years working in the area of nonprofits and social services. And so, I worked as a case manager. So I help support people in their journeys and provided resources for them to help them in their growth, their personal growth.
Hmm.
And I find that now it's such a beautiful commingling, from the social service side that basically commingles with the writing and the author and the storytelling side. So it's just a beautiful kind of a patchwork quilt type of scenario where everyone, my past and present job career is actually kind of commingling.
That's beautiful. I love that. And also, I love the fact that you said something about like stories. Like people have their stories and you help them to kind of draw it out, bring it out. And, we all have our stories. We all have our
Yes.
personal stories that we have gone through and been through. And, with Conversations with Davina, this is kind of what we're here for and we're talking about. We all have stories about things that have happened in our lives that we're trying to overcome or just get through. And I would like to just talk to you a little bit about your story. Can you share about anything that you feel would be something that the audience could connect with about overcoming obstacles that you faced in your life?
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm the poster child for that uh, because probably um, hmm, about maybe 10 years ago, I had a serious car accident and my car was totaled. And, thankfully I was able to get out and I didn't feel at the time that I had been injured. So I just continued. I kept on for probably a couple days until it actually just really hit me. Then that's when I started feeling a lot of the pain and discomfort. I didn't dig further. So I continued to work. I continued to do life as usual. And it really honestly started becoming more and more of an increasing situation from my neck down until I finally started getting some medical help and found that I think in the bracing of the accident, I had basically like thrown myself into a place where, like I said, my neck, my lower back was affected, ended up having some other things. It just kind of threw everything off. So my whole body was basically thrown out of whack. And so from there, I have dealt with a lot of chronic pain. But I grew up in that era where it's like, you feel pain, you just push through it. And that's what I did. I masked the pain. I pushed through it. Even at work, I had some scenarios where I was having to lift boxes and do things. And, I'm like, okay, I got this. I'm hurting, but I've got this. And so I would just continue to push through. And, um, and then at the same time, you know, being one whose job specs required to support other people, I would push my own needs aside. Like, okay, well, this client needs or this particular project needs. And so I found that I started neglecting caring for myself without really realizing that that's what I was doing. It just became very comfortable. And so it did get to the point where it was very difficult for me to function and I just kept trying to push it away. And then we went through a season where my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. And, she and I had a very close relationship, but not as close as what we could have been. She didn't really know me real well, and I didn't know her real well after so many years of marriage. And when she had received her cancer diagnosis, I decided to go and be supportive of her. My husband was working full time, and so was I at that time. But because for some reason, God just allowed the pain to get to that point where it's like, okay, you can't do this anymore. So I went to a doctor. The doctor took me off of work and put me on disability, which allowed me at that time to be that support person for my mother-in-law. And I was beside her in her moments of having to, she was in one hospital after another. And so I was her support person. And, we had other family members that was also there, but just being able to decipher what the doctors were saying and just being able to give her that moral support and that encouragement. And then ironically, my parents who were living in North Carolina, my mother had taken a fall and we thought, not too much of it. And unfortunately, she developed a blood clot that put her into a cardiac arrest situation. And I got that call just as I was caring for my mother-in-law that she was in the hospital. They had put her on a ventilator. They weren't sure how well she was going to do, but we felt hopeful that she would come out of it. And so it was one of those times where it's like, okay, do I fly up there and, check on my mom or do I stay with my mother-in-law who's also in need? And, we were pretty much sure that my mom was going to be okay, that it
Hmm.
would be a matter of time and that she would start to come out of it. But what we didn't know was that she had a brain bleed and that she was struggling with this brain bleed that was, just increasingly getting worse. And while we got the word that my mother had passed away, my mother-in-law, who had been released from the hospital and had been placed kind of in a hospice situation, she passed away 2 days later. So while we're dealing with the devastation of losing my mom, it was kind of like, okay, now you're in a scenario where you now have to face that your mother-in-law just passed away. And we had really hoped that she was also gonna, have more time and that she was going to last a little longer and we would be able to, you know, but the beauty in the mother-in-law scenario was that my mother-in-law and I just talked so much. We talked about her past and about her growing up. There was so much that she revealed to me, and we just drew so much closer together as a result of what had happened. And ironically, she assured me that my mom was going to be okay. And I think to this day, I still think that what she was saying is that she's going to be okay. I'm just going to make sure that she's going to be fine, and you have nothing to worry about. And so it was one of those journeys that it was just one of those unbelievable. You're dealing with grief, trying to deal with the grief of losing your mom, and then all of a sudden losing my mother-in-law, and then having to help, my husband and support my husband and his family as they're dealing with that grief and putting all of that together, and then trying to, get everything sorted and, to memorialize my mom and, fly and then be there for it was a season. It was quite a season. And, I just felt like, my faith wavered, but at the same time, I just had to continue and trust that God had a reason. And,
Yeah,
we just kind of strengthened ourselves through that time.
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it's ironic that you were in a car accident and got to the point where you had to be taken out of work. Um, and as you were able, as you were taken out of work, you were able to be there to support your mother-in-law and also kind of, manage a little bit with so much that was coming at you
Yes. Yes.
that, just
Yes.
working on top of everything else, that would have been such
Hmm.
a huge load to
It
carry.
was. It was.
So, that's just, it's a lot to go through, but, it was nice that you had that ability to go there and support her and be there and share those stories and those memories that she shared with you. I think that that's a huge blessing, but I'll let you share.
Well, I think what really came from it was sitting by her bedside. My mother-in-law, she's had such a beautiful story. Her story in itself was beautiful. She kind of had a life where she was a little misplaced here and there, and she had to move as a teenager to live with her father. There was a lot of things, challenges that she faced growing up, and I decided to record her stories. And so some of what she shared with me, I recorded. So I thought that was because we never had those opportunities to really talk. And from that, she talked about, what she thought about her sons and how proud of them she was. And so, I was able to kind of capture that. And so there's beauty in just her sharing her story. And so, as I mentioned, you were talking about being an overcomer. Life did not get better after losing both moms. We were still seated in grief. However, enter COVID. COVID just started up, and my husband, as a result of his losing his mom, he decided to take an early retirement. At that point in time, though, he decided he wanted to have kind of a little bit of a side hustle because he didn't like being home, 24/7 after working so many years. He had bought a motorcycle. I wasn't thrilled about it, but he had bought this motorcycle. He was a safe driver. And so I pretty much put my faith in his ability to ride. However, he was supposed to come home one particular day and he was late, and I had no idea. Like, I thought maybe he had stopped somewhere, and just, it was so weird because I received this phone call that my husband was in the emergency room. And I'm like, what's he doing in the emergency? I couldn't figure it out. Well, come to find out, he had had a serious motorcycle accident. And this was during COVID. So I immediately like, where is he? Can I be there? And they said, no, no, he's okay. We're just going to take care of him and we'll get back with you. So I'm thinking it's just something very minor. They said that he was not bleeding and whatever else. From what they could see on the outwards, that he was fine. Later on, I received a phone call from a neurosurgeon, and all I heard was him saying, he could possibly go into cardiac arrest, and he could be a paraplegic, and he's seriously injured his back. He seriously injured his spinal cord. There was head trauma. I mean, all of this that I was not. I mean, I just thought it was a minor motorcycle accident, and it went from minor to serious. And at that point in time, I had to deal with the whole aspect of it. Like, what does this look like? And he said, I need to operate. If we don't operate, we could lose him. And I'm like, oh my Lord. So, I was begging, can I please be there? And he said, no, this is COVID. Like, we, I, I don't need you there. There's no reason for you to be there. There's nothing. We have the hospital rules. And so, my husband was going through intense surgery. I couldn't be present with him. Fortunately, in that time, the hospital did have the means to FaceTime. And so once he came out of the surgery and everything else, they were able to let me FaceTime with him. And, it was a very long journey for him. He had to go, he broke multiple parts of his body. He fractured, his sternum, his clavicle, and there was just so many things aside from the spinal surgery that he had to have. And it was a long course, and I couldn't see him. It was 6 weeks with him in the hospital. And then once he did come home, our roles changed. My role became now the worrywart wife had to become the strong caregiver and had to be there to assist and help him through some of his therapy, the pain. And of course, he couldn't drive, and he couldn't, he could barely get around. He could barely stand, let alone walk. And so my role changed. And so I felt like through the course of, my own pain, and then the loss that we faced, and then dealing with, my husband's accident. And it was just like, Lord, like, what? No, like, where are we going with this? It was just one of those times where it was unimaginable. And, but God is so good because I watched my husband. My husband was such a fighter through all of it. And he just really was determined that he was going to walk. And I saw God little by little restore him. And, he began, pushing through, and with the help of physical therapy, he started regaining the use of his, legs and all of that. And so it changed things for us in such a way that I never imagined, and so it was a journey that was unexpected. And like I said, with COVID, there was other challenges. It was the COVID challenges, keeping yourself well at the same time as keeping him well. And, my children were present, and they were just beautiful and supportive and all of that. So there was so much that came from it. The community was supportive, and let alone it was still a very tough and difficult journey. And so just when we kind of caught our breath, my husband ended up having to have several different surgeries, knee replacement surgeries and stuff like that. So we've gone through a series of different things at the same time. And we had some relationship things that happened as a result of my parents passing. I forgot to mention that right after my husband's motorcycle accident, my father ended up sick, and he ended up with cancer. And it was just suddenly, I mean, he was hospitalized, and my father didn't last very long. And so I didn't even have time to really brace myself because I'm still caregiver. And
Mm-hmm.
then my father took sick and then passed away. And so it was just like one thing after another. And, in those moments where I really felt like my faith was going to just completely be completely demolished, God would just give me he would just give me like scriptures. He would give me hope. He would give me songs. He gave me the ability just to kind of step away and just to be able to breathe for a minute and just to cling to him for my strength.
That's beautiful. So you went through one thing after another of, just loss and grief, and then unexpected situations, and not knowing the state of your husband going through COVID and not being able to be with him for several weeks. This wasn't like a couple days. This was like several weeks of you
Yes.
not being there for him. That in itself right there is overwhelming. And then right after that, he gets home and things are kind of going along, bumpy, but going along. And then your father gets sick and pass away unexpectedly. Um, that's quite just a journey that you have been through. But the beautiful thing that you shared is that you believe the Lord was with you, and he would give you opportunities of, it sounds like, peace and moments where you knew it was him. I call it when God winks at you. That's what I call it. But
Oh, yes.
everyone has their own way
Hmm.
of sharing that.
Hmm.
the relationship that you have with the Lord. He is touching you and He's there and He's providing
Hmm.
what you need at that current moment.
Yes,
And
that's so
that's,
true.
yeah, that's the beautiful thing that you shared. Can you say, in each moment that you went through, did you feel like, although it was undescribable, nothing that you can really kind of gain a grip on, really describing what you were going through and how you were feeling at the present moment, but did you get the sense of, because of your faith, you felt like the Lord was with you during all of those obstacles and things that you were going through?
I did. It's funny. As I mentioned, there were certain verses that would that I would cling to. One of the verses was Psalms 121, and it's the Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over you. And the Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. I clung to that because I knew that I wasn't alone in the journey. I knew, aside from all of the family and friends and all of that, that I had them. But at the same time, in the middle of the night when I was crying out, you know, it was just me and the Lord. And I knew that that's the only one that I could rely on in that moment. While my husband was hospitalized, I did not sleep. I could not sleep. My husband and I were high school sweethearts. We married, and and today we've been married for 40 years. And so, not having been apart was so difficult for me that I think that in all those times that he was in the hospital, I didn't sleep and I cried a lot. And I was so, I felt so like I needed to be with him. And
Mm-hmm.
the Lord met me in those moments. And even in my grief with my mother-in-law and my mom, you talked about winks. It's so funny because as I waited to hear how my husband was doing each day, I would sit out in my garden and there was these two beautiful yellow butterflies that would just flutter around always. And for some reason, it always brought comfort because I always kind of thought about that as, my mother-in-law and my mom just kind of got reminding me of their love, of the legacy that they gave me, and that I know that they would be saying, like, Syrone, just keep going. Like, you've got this. Like, just trust God. He's got your husband. He's got your situation. And so I would see these butterflies and it just brought peace. And when my father passed away, as ironic as this is another God wink. My father he loved Volkswagens, like Volkswagen, the VW, the bugs. And so he even like collected the little Hot Wheels. And all of a sudden I started seeing Volkswagens on the road. It's one of those cars where you don't see very often, but I started seeing the older vintage models of Volkswagens. And, there was one day and I literally counted like 10 Volkswagens. And I'm like, who does that? You're driving down the road and all of a sudden it's like, well, there's a blue one there. And I saw I saw one that was the color of this powder blue one that he had. And, just like I said, it was an old school bug. And even to this day, whenever I see a Volkswagen, I always take it as a God wink, because it's just so much of a reminder, and the same with the butterflies. And so, I think that God does give us reminders that He's present and He reminds you of the love that you've had, and that same love still exists. And so I feel like it kind of blankets me when I see, the butterflies, or when I see, a Volkswagen. It's just kind of a reminder like, hey, I've got you. And, and I just cling to that. I cling to the scriptures and I cling to that. And, it's not, I don't want to come off and sound like, this is like Pollyanna and I'm just like, I'm so strong and God is, that's it. There's no problems. I can, I'm such a strong person because I'm not. Just when I thought that things were starting to settle down, um, March of 2023, I received a diagnosis that I was not prepared for. We had just celebrated, it was March of 2023, but it was like the 28th of March, and we just celebrated our anniversary, where things were just like, we were just, basking in that. And then I received a call that there was a diagnosis of breast cancer. And I was just like so waylaid by that. I'm like, I really honestly, for a minute, where you feel like you kind of been punked, I felt like I was being like, seriously, like, Lord, you've got to be kidding me. Like, the journey that I've been through, what I've gone through, what we've gone through. And, like this was just a moment and we were just celebrating and here you go. Like what? And so I felt that for that in that moment, I did feel like major discouragement. I felt like, okay, where are you? Like, where are you, Lord, in this? Like, what are you trying to teach me something? Are you trying, what is this that you're trying to do? And I felt such a peace though. It's hard to explain what that was like. I knew that whatever this journey was gonna lay out to be, that I would not be alone. And, as I went through, the treatment and the surgery, the treatment and just, the aftermath of it all, I honestly felt God's presence. I felt like at peace. I felt at peace even as I went into surgery. I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I just felt like I was just blanketed and I wasn't freaking out. I wasn't panicked. I just knew that God had me and I just relied on that. And I had so many people that just, I knew that they were praying for me. I had people that was just so supportive, people that also had fought that same battle and they encouraged me. There was a lady who sent me probably about 300 scriptures of encouragement. And I don't know if some of them were repeated or not, but she gave me, and she's like, pull a scripture every day. And even to this day, I still pull scriptures from when she gave them. I just reuse them, but it's my encouragement. And it's how I was able to get through yet another challenge and I was able to overcome and get through that. Because otherwise, like I said, without the grace of God, there's no way. All that we have encountered, all that I've been through, all of the pain, all of the heartache, all of the challenges, it's only by God's grace. And I give him 100% glory for that because I would have been I would have hit a wall and I definitely would have gotten to a point where I had mentioned to my husband that I would have pulled the covers up over my head and said, I'm done, like this, like, where are you in this, God? But, he just provided me with such a peace and just kind of strengthened me through it. And at the same time, it also allowed me to be there for others that started going through that same journey. It was just so weird how he would place people that ironically were also either diagnosed or going through challenges, and he would put them right in front of me, So it was kind of like a mutual support, but at the same time, I was able to encourage them too. And so it was just something that, again, like I said, very unexpected and out of nowhere. But God was good and just healing mercies. And, I'm glad because I am good. I'm in a good place now. And after the diagnosis and after the treatment, and, God is he's my ever present help every day. And that's how I'm able to just keep walking and just get through it. So I'm
Um,
grateful. Yeah.
Praise God. I mean, you just said so many different things. I love it. I usually call them nuggets, but the thing that I held on to most, you mentioned that about God winking at you and providing those just ways to show that He's with you, He's carrying you through what you're going through. And even when you went through something else, He still was there to just share with you that you're going to be okay. And you felt His presence. And not only
Hmm.
did you feel it, but he surrounded you with people that was able to encourage you, uplift you, support you in
Hmm.
what you were going through. And I think that's so
Hmm.
important that you're surrounded by people for our listeners. Just be surrounded by people who are going to uplift you, support you, not bring you down with negativity, but actually lift you up no matter what you're going through. And I think that's one of the greatest things to have as you're going through challenges and ups and downs is to surround yourself with people who are going to be positive and help you. Because we all
Hmm.
have challenges. We all have things that we're
Right.
going through,
Right.
and we're on this roller coaster of life, as I always say. But surround yourself by people who are going to, just lift you up and be there to support you. And I think that was something that really helped you when you were going through your own struggles with your
Yes.
diagnosis.
Yes. I really believe that the term better together is so true. I think we are better together. And, a lot of times, I've heard people say, well, I really don't have anyone, I don't have family, I feel like I'm alone. I feel that there's never an opportunity that you don't have, that you cannot reach out to someone. Like, you could pick up the phone randomly and, like you said, you could call a caring voice, and there's someone on the other end that can be there for you. There are support groups. There's such a myriad of support groups, you know, for whatever issues or challenges you might be facing, whether it might be illness or whatever else. And, we have to be able to ask for the help. For me, in my situation, I was the one that was giving the help when I was a case manager, when I worked for my nonprofits. I provided the resources, I provided the assistance and the help. So for me, this was completely unusual for me all of a sudden being the one to ask for help or to require the support, to rely on the strength of others. And I think we have to be able to do that. We have to be able to humble ourselves and say, like, I can't do this alone, or I need someone to be able to kind of uplift me and encourage me. And there's no shame in that. I feel like for me, I joined some support groups when I started going through this. I went through therapy because I wanted to know, like there were periods of time where I started questioning, especially after my diagnosis, like why? Like, why is all of this going on? So I decided I was going to get the therapy because I felt like it would help strengthen me and be supportive of me. So I did those things because I wanted to be stronger in that, not just physically stronger, but emotionally and mentally stronger. And I think that there's no shame in reaching out to someone. And even if you don't know that person, like your organization, it takes one phone call to get to know someone, and initially, and and continuing to be supported allows that friendship and those relationships where you're able to unite, and we are so much better as a result of it and better together. So it is such an encouragement. I always encourage people, especially when they say, like, I don't have anyone or I'm so alone. There's always someone out there. Like, there's never, I mean, you could walk across the street to a neighbor that you've never met and say, hey, I'm struggling, and maybe you might be well received and maybe you might get the door closed on you. There's always going to be an opportunity for you to meet up with someone, or maybe just even a smile that you might need in that moment. Like, if you go to the grocery store, like, there's always someone. And so we have to stay encouraged, even if it's just a little glimmer or a huge glimmer of hope.
Yes, absolutely. And you brought up a good point that there's always support groups and things available to anyone in need. So even if you don't have a person right there with you, you may live far away from your relatives or loved ones, and it may be hard for you to even connect with people. Or you may be, and sometimes this happened to many of my clients, they are the last living relative and or individual in their bloodlines. They don't have anyone. And I totally agree with you. Connecting with support groups or an organization like A Caring Voice for You, we also have a support group that we meet every Monday night, can be very helpful. So I definitely agree. There is someone out there for everyone to support them and to be there with them no matter what they're going through, whether it's one time or several times or whenever they need it. Reach out and connect. Either with us or another organization so you can get that support and you can keep pushing through. Because the goal is to continue to push through. No matter what you're going through, you can overcome and you can get over it. It's kind of like, being on a roller coaster and going up and down, or, climbing a hill. We all have that hill that we don't want to go up. And sometimes we're trying and we just have to kind of keep going to push ourselves
Yes,
over.
yes, yes. And there's no weakness in asking for help. There's no weakness in seeking the help. But I also find that, help can also be a point where people become codependent on that assistance. And so there has to be like a fine line where your support strengthens you and strengthens you to be stronger, but not reliant on someone to the point where it's like, okay, well, I need to be connected to someone 24/7 in order for me to function. Help can just come in different forms, but it also is meant to serve as a strengthening device for you to be able to maybe even turn around and help someone else, or to be supportive of someone else, but not to be a codependent role. Okay, I can't I can't cross the street without first consulting this person because they've always been there for me. It's supposed to be a supportive tool for you to be able to maybe develop those relationships, but not to the point where you are become so codependent that you can't function. It's supposed to be a point where you are strengthened through it. And, like I said, yes, I can make it seem like I have everything together. And there are those times where, discouragement creeps in. Going to my source of support is an encouragement. To relying on my faith is a supportive source of strength for me. And, but that's what has worked for me. And that has encouraged me so much. So,
Yeah, that's great. When I was going through my own sense of loss and, grief and, struggles with my job and my own sickness, I relied on my faith as well. And, everyone has something that they turn to and rely on to help them get through. Can you share with the audience if there's someone out there who may be going through, just struggles in life, whether it's, losing a loved one or just coming to terms to something that was unexpected or going through a sickness? Can you share with them just some words of encouragement that you felt like, you know what? Maybe I wish someone would have said this, or someone said it to you that helped you kind of move forward and get through what you were going through.
well, I want to double back and also say that one of the things that also was very helpful to me was tapping into what I was really feeling, because it's easy to push through and say, like, I'm good, I'm fine. I know that in my working life, I would always say that I was the no problem girl. You know, Someone would be like, I need you to do this, 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 and this. No problem. When I was dealing with my pain, no problem. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to push through. It's easy to push through and just not acknowledge. And so what helped me was that my daughter gave me a journal. And, I had written in diaries when I was younger and I'd written in journals before, but this particular journal was very important because I needed to be able to sort through what I was feeling and not neglect being able to own and embrace those feelings, because
Hmm.
sometimes feelings are scary,
Yeah.
when you're dealing with grief. Sometimes it's easier just to pretend like it's not happening or it didn't happen, and she's still there. I'm just going to make like she's there, but she's not, it's easy to deny what's really true. And so for me, the journal was one of the tools that I was able to use to tap into that. It's good to pray and to trust God, but at the same time, to be able to tap into my genuine feelings and just the deep, maybe the sadness, maybe the fear, maybe the anxiety of having had lost them and all that was going on in my life. I relied on being able to write in a journal. And I think a journal can be a great tool because it measures where you've been and where you are and where you hope and anticipate to be. And so it can be a beautiful thing. And so for those that like to write, I do encourage, like, use that as a tool to be able to tap into some of your emotions and some of your feelings. And even today, I still, use my journal. A journal can be just writing scriptures, writing down the scriptures that are important to you or relevant to you. It could be having a conversation or talking about what you aspire to do or to achieve. A journal could be so many different things to different people. Even if someone says, I'm not a writer or I don't write, it could be something where you just basically draw pictures, doodle, scratch, whatever in that moment helps you to unwind your feelings and your emotions. I wholeheartedly say, take a journal, just do that, make it a daily practice, and if it's not a journal, then find something that you can do, whether it be working a puzzle. Something that may be something different from what you've done before, working a puzzle or doing something that gives you a moment of stillness and quiet to be able to pull your emotions out, to be able to really acknowledge what you're feeling. I think
Hmm.
we spend so much time. I also want to mention that I learned that I'm a breath holder. And I didn't realize that until probably a few years back that I hold my breath. when I know that things are like starting to become really intense, I just like hold my breath and I breathe shallowly. And I started learning that you need to be able to stop and breathe. And I ended up getting a tattoo on my wrist that reminds me to breathe, just because I realized that at one point that I had that tendency to stop and just not breathe. So an encouragement is to stop in a moment and just take a very deep cleansing breath and just stop and center yourself for that moment. And, it could be in a moment of prayer or whatever else. But I think the biggest thing I would encourage people to do is to be basically like, tap in and redirect and find out what they really are experiencing, what they're really feeling, and just not be afraid to own those emotions. There's no shame in feeling the grief. There's no shame in feeling the sadness in that moment. You just don't want to stay there. Find something in that moment that brings you joy. I mean, I'm someone that's I don't know if you can see my little office space, but I'm someone that I like vintage toys, and I like things that are really, I'm going to show you this. This is an old vintage monkey. It has the symbols, and I call this my yay me monkey, because there are times you can wind it up and it does a symbol and it kind of claps for me. Just little things that bring you joy. It doesn't have to satisfy anyone else. It can just satisfy yourself. And as far as just encouraging, surround yourself with those things and with those people that will bring you the courage and the encouragement.
Yeah. Wow, you said so many amazing things that I think people can draw from and kind of take in and definitely use. The one thing that resonated with me very much is to just breathe. Sometimes we need to stop and take a moment, whether you're closing your eyes or you're keeping them open, but just breathe. And I often share with my clients that even if you're having a moment where your emotions are just all over the place, you could be angry, upset, sad, whatever it is, just stop, take a few deep breaths in and out, breathe. And even when you're surrounded by other people, no one really needs to know that you're doing that, and you can do it anywhere. So I often encourage that, to breathe, just like what Syrone shared, to just breathe and, take a moment to reflect on what's going on and try to get yourself back to the place where you want to be and center yourself. So
Yes,
beautiful.
yes, yes. Because with anxiety, I notice that with myself, when I'm feeling moments of anxiety, it can like continue, it can cycle, you know, but for a moment, it can redirect if you just stop for a moment and you just take that deep cleansing breath, and then it's kind
Mhm.
of causes you to, just come to a screeching halt with that anxiety. So it's just breathing is just so important. It really does like recenter you and kind of refocus you as well.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I am so thankful that we had the opportunity to chat and
Me
for you to
too.
share your story. It's beautiful. Just a lot of what you share, just I don't know, it just helped me as well to know that you can continue to push through. And I'm sure our audience would agree that, you have been through a lot, but your faith and your ability to push through and the strategies that you share are absolutely phenomenal. And I thank you so much for sharing that with our audience. How could someone get in contact with you if they wanted to learn more about, just you supporting them with their book journey or just to have a conversation in general?
Well, I do have a web page. It's called Sincerely Syrone, and it does have a little bit a little bit of everything that I do right now, whether it be book editing or development coaching. It also talks about some of the books that I've written as well in collaboration. And the web address for that is sincerelysyrone.com. They can reach me via my email, sincerely Syrone1 at gmail.com. And so, yeah, so that's how you can connect with me. And it kind of gives you some other opportunities to kind of read a little bit more about what I'm doing and what projects I'm working on. So
Wow, thank you so much. I
you're
appreciate it.
welcome.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you are interested in getting into our support group, which is on Monday nights, or just learning more about A Caring Voice for You and how you or a family member can be supported, please reach out to us at caringvoiceforyou.com. And until next time, take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Welcome. Bye.